admit to any crimes. Welcome. And who are you? Start with that.
My name is Matt Juaneza.
Juaneza. I was going to ask how you pronounce that.
Juaneza.
Do you have a middle name?
I actually don't have a traditional middle name.
Okay.
It's actually my mother's maiden name.
Okay.
So full name is actually Matthew Kahulis Juaneza.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But don't call me Matthew, because when someone calls me Matt, that usually
is your full name, though.
That is my full name.
But you prefer not.
That usually means I'm in trouble. If you call me Matthew, it usually means I'm in trouble. And
So you're okay.
Let's avoid that.
And for those who heard the sound effects, Matthew's opened a beverage. What beverage did you open?
I got a 3-notched Lake Life.
Okay. And then Matt graciously brought me a Virgil's handcrafted root beer, which I will now attempt to pour fairly close to the microphone. So for everyone's audio benefits there. I told him I liked root beer. He brought a root beer. You're already my best friend.
Cheers.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, there we go. Thank you. All right. We'll try not to burp all over the mic either. So Matt, how did you get into riding?
As I am today.
Yeah. You're close to your version that you're doing now.
Okay. So probably. Oh God, it had to be at least my junior year of college. I actually got my first real mountain bike, and at the time it was what I thought was an expensive mountain bike. I still remember it's a Specialized Hard Rock, and it cost me $350.
Ooh, okay. That was priced in college dollars.
That was definitely in college dollars.
Yeah. Okay, so you get this bike. What was the thought of getting this bike? Was it just like, I just want to have some wheels, like kind of thing? Or what?
It was a little bit of both. I mean, I was still living in a dorm, so I still wanted some transportation to get from my dorm to class, but I also wanted to... That was also when some of the JRPS trails started to come up and be used a little bit more. And at the time, one of my best friends that I was working with at the gym at VCU, he had just gotten into mountain biking.
Okay. Maybe
about 2 or 3 months ago.
Okay.
So it's like, he kind of convinced me, to replace the old mountain bike that I had, which was a full rigid 26-inch Raleigh M20.
Okay.
Which I was basically using strictly as a commuter.
Okay.
So I replaced that thing, got this, Specialized Hard Rock, and my friend Mike was like, yeah, let me show you some of the trails out there. And it's like, well, I've never done that before, but like, sure, let's try this thing. Obviously, I'm starting out in cycling, so I don't have any gear. I have tennis shoes, and go out there with gym shorts, a t-shirt, and I didn't have a Camelback or water bottle, so I had a 64-ounce or 32-ounce Nalgene and a book bag.
Okay.
So I throw on a book bag and throw my my 32-ounce Nalgene in there, and we go hit some trails.
How was that ride? Were you just like, this is awesome, or just
that was rough? Yeah. Okay. I mean, I probably only made it up to Reedy Creek.
Okay.
From where we were in Jackson Ward, so altogether it's like maybe a 10-mile round trip. In trail terms, that was like maybe 3 miles, if that. So it definitely wasn't a long ride at all, but like it definitely like wet my lips a little bit on trying to get out there in some trails.
Okay.
And that was my first ride.
Okay.
I definitely remember like my second or third ride, which was actually solo at the time. So I actually just felt adventurous and wanted to go out there by myself just to give it a try, before I actually made up my mind about it. And so went out there by myself. Probably
James River Trails.
James River Trail System. So I was definitely on the Buttermilk Trail. I don't know if you're familiar with the trails down there. Kind of did an outback, from my apartment at Jackson Ward. Went all the way out to Reed Creek and came back.
Okay.
And then, so there's this one part on the Buttermilk Trail, just past the 22nd Street entrance. It's probably about a quarter mile, maybe a half mile into it, but it's like this little step-up root ball.
Okay.
That go on the trail, and I was coming the opposite way, so you had to drop down it.
Okay.
Right. And I kind of had this like misconception of how physics worked on bikes. So I was feeling kind of jumpy that day.
Okay.
So I decided to try to huck myself off that thing.
Okay.
And it ended very badly.
Yeah. Really?
So I endoed over my handlebars, came down, probably stuck my hands out like a noob. That's what most people called beginner mountain bikes back in the day was noobs. I don't know if that term's still thrown around. these days. But, threw my hands out in front of me, landed straight onto the ground, dust kicks up, debris all over the place. I get up, I'm looking at myself, like, all right, everything still looks intact.
Yeah.
And then I lift up my left hand palm, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. Mm-hmm. There's a stick sticking out of my palm.
Oh, dude. Okay.
So I'm looking, I was like, that doesn't look good. So I'm like looking at this thing, and it's like, it didn't look too deep. So it's like, I'm just going to pluck that thing out of there.
Yeah.
So I plucked it out, and of course, like, blood starts oozing all over the place, right? And I'm like, well, what do I do now? Of course, I'm kind of wearing more or less the same kind of getup as my first eye. So I'm, wearing a t-shirt, gym shorts, sneakers, and backpack. So the only thing I could think of was like, well, I'm just gonna like rip a piece of my sleeve off and like just wrap it.
Sure. Yeah.
And then at the time, I was still also working at the student gym, so I decided to like limp myself over to the gym.
Okay.
Over there on my mountain bike, get to the gym, and the supervisor of the shift was there, and she just looks at me. She's like, "Man, you look like you're having a bad day." And I'm like, kind of. And so I unwrap the wound on my hand. I kind of show her my palm, and she just goes, "Oh." It's like, yeah, I'm just here for the first aid kit, and I'll be on my way.
Oh man.
But that's just kind of how it all got started. I kind of made a decision that falls are going to happen if you're going to do mountain biking, and that was just part of the game, and I kind of accepted it and just kind of went from there.
And you just like how long did it take to heal roughly?
Oh, probably at least 2.5 weeks before it like scabbed up and fell off. So.
And you still went out. You just still went out on the road. Just went out on the road some more. Okay.
Still went out the road, did my thing, and just kind of stayed with it.
Did you and the friend ride more? Did you start meeting other people that rode? Like how the
just to get more acclimated to the trails and like the trail network and stuff like that. So I just kept riding with him. Mm-hmm. But I also more or less just went up by myself because at the time there really weren't that many like big groups of cyclists or mountain bikers at the time because the trails were actually pretty new at that time.
What years are we talking to this?
If I was a junior in college at the time, that was 2005.
Okay. VCU?
VCU.
Okay. All right. Okay. I was also there at that time. So you're riding, you're doing your rides around the James River Park. Did you make it out to Pocahontas? Pocahontas existed.
Pocahontas, I think at the time it didn't really exist at the time. I think there may have been like the Morgan Trail System. I think that was the original trail system down there. Okay. But yeah, definitely the Lakeview Trails didn't exist, and the Swift Creek Trails definitely didn't exist at that time. So you had like this small little thing of like what was it, like 10 miles of trail in Pocahontas State Park. Also at the time, I was in college, so I didn't have a car at that point either. So yeah, making it down to Pocahontas was kind of a hard task for me to do without getting some friends that had cars.
So college, you're riding around. Do you feel like your skills are getting better as you ride around more in college and things like that?
Oh, I was definitely starting to get better.
Okay.
I was starting to get better feel for how mountain bikes reacted as you went over routes. The kind of general thought that I had in my head is like, look, wherever your front wheel is going to go, your rear wheel is going to follow. Mm-hmm. So if you can clear the obstacle with your front wheel, chances are your rear wheel is going to clear it at the same time. So I kind of just kept riding with that kind of mindset. Okay. And that kind of got me through a whole bunch of mental hurdles as far as what the James River system had to offer.
Okay. So you're doing the James River system in college, and I guess so. What happens like after? Like you finish college? You stayed? Did you stay here?
I stayed in Richmond.
You stayed in Richmond. Okay. All right. So how to go from I'm riding around the James River Trail System. What are you doing? Like 10, 15 miles kind of rides?
Oh, good God, no.
Okay. How far? What kind of rides?
I think I didn't really start hitting like the 10 to 15. So I don't know how familiar you are with the distances around the James River and the James River Loop. But if you add up Buttermilk, North Bank, and Forest Hill, and only do those trails, that's roughly about 10 miles.
Okay. All right.
So Buttermilk's roughly 3-ish.
Okay.
Same thing with North Bank. It's roughly 3-ish, and then likewise for Forest Hill. I don't think I started stringing together all three trails for a solid year and a half.
Okay.
I think. So a lot of it was just spent trying to get my fitness up to that point where I could string them together.
Were you thinking about your fitness? Were you just like, I'm just going to go ride and I enjoy riding? Or were you, at any point, did you start thinking like, I want to get better at this. Let me ride this to get better at this, kind of like that precision. Like, I just enjoy it. And now like, let me purposely try to do stuff to get better. Like, was that happening at that point in time?
Oh, it was definitely a combination of things. So you brought up fitness. I mean, that was actually probably one of the bigger reasons why I took up cycling. Was to improve my fitness. A lot of my close friends knew me back then, and they knew me as a kind of a bigger person back then. So I was definitely pushing a hair over 200 pounds. In college, versus today when I'm weighing 150 pounds. So it's a very stark difference between how I was then to how I am today. So I wanted to fix that. So one, I enjoyed riding bikes. Right, I used riding a bike was my main mode of transportation to get around campus. Whenever I was up in northern, by the way, I'm from Northern Virginia. So whenever I was up in Northern Virginia, I would always ride the Mount Vernon Trail. So I would start at Belhaven Park and then go all the way out to Mount Vernon, which is solid, about 20-ish mile, ride. Do that. So I enjoyed just in general riding my bike. And then at the time, mountain biking was starting to get, more popular, and I just thought, hey, that's kind of cool. I want to do that too. So I just kind of progressed from there, and just started developing more skills. And then my friend that got me into mountain biking, he's like, yeah, you should try a race. So it was kind of ambitious at the time. So I was like, let me hold off on that for a bit here. Try to get my fitness and skills up here. But eventually, that kind of led into racing, and kind of just more regularly racing and competing against other people. Do you recall what your first race was? Like race? I think pretty sure I did Camp Hilbert. Back in the day.
Camp Hilbert. I'm not familiar with that.
That is in Goochland, Virginia.
Okay.
It's near the Boy Scout camp. I don't know if you know where that is.
I mean, I know Goochland, and I'm not familiar with the Boy Scouts location, but that's okay. So you do this Camp Hilbert. How far was the ride? Do you recall?
That was a 12-mile race.
12-mile race.
So it's 2 6-mile laps. Yeah.
Were you competing, or were you just participating? Like, was this a full-on like I think I might try to win this, or were you just like, let me just ride in it and see how it goes?
I competed for the first 50 yards.
And
then it just turned into participation, and then it turned into survival.
So so you survived. You did the whole distance.
I did the whole distance. Yeah, I finished. It was a tough for me back then. That was a tough race. I'm pretty sure I finished. It took me 2 hours. When most people were taking about an hour and a half ish. Around there. But given that it was a learning experience for me. So one, I learned not to burn all my matches in the first 10 seconds of the race, and two, it's like you can't redline your heart rate for 2 hours. You just can't. 3, you've got to pace yourself. So, there are a lot of lessons learned in that first race. And then I kind of took that into the next race, which was the then Xterra Urban Assault, which is, I think most people today would know it as the Dominion River Rock Urban Assault. Did that. And kind of the same deal. It's like I burned all my matches in like the first couple yards here or something like that, but it was a lot better. I didn't finish dead last, but I still finished in the back end of the group. But it was more of a just achievement thing, kind of a personal goal thing for me at that point.
Now regarding this first race, and if you can't recall all the emotions, that's fine. Did you have any thoughts of like, so you start off and you said you were thinking you were competing, and were you really surprised by the level of skill of the other riders?
Oh yeah. Yeah, because for me that was probably the first time I've really done like athletic events. And then to see someone going full on for 2 to 4 laps, like that, it's like, that kind of lit a little bit of a fire on me. It's like, that's something I could shoot for. It's like, how do I get to this point where I can raise my fitness enough to be able to at least ride like that, to ride a whole race like that versus just, here's a flash in the pan and for the first 10 seconds and then survival
just
mode
to start,
for the rest of that time.
So then the Xterra Urban Assault, you do that one. You don't finish last. You finish in the back group. Is that what you take that as? Okay.
And I think the Urban Assault, the first time I did it, when I finished it, I think that's when I first set my first real race goal. Okay. For the next season, my next my goal the following year was I want to place. Okay. After the first in the next Urban Assault.
Okay. So wait, so you do this one. Did you prepare for this Xterra race? Were you just riding? How did you try to get ready for this race?
The next year?
No, the first Xterra. The first
Xterra. It was just, after work, just get my bike out and kind of ride as much of the James River Park system as I can, as hard as I could. Okay. There was no training plan here. It was just full motor, go. Yeah.
Did you know anybody else who raced at all?
Not at that point, no. Okay. Yeah.
So your circle of people is whoever the guy was that introduced you at the gym and a few other people.
In the gyms, you meet a couple people at the races, but back then it was definitely Richmond grassroots mountain biking scene. Okay. Scene. Okay. So if you ran into someone's like, hey, cool, I ride a bike too. Where do you do all your riding? So it just kind of starts there as meeting acquaintances and friends at these races. But you didn't really have cells of people all over the place like there is today.
Okay. So you do the Xterra race and then you decide you want to set a goal. You want to do this again, and you want to do it better. Yeah. The next year, you want to place, right? So what then happens between that Xterra and then doing it the next time? What kind of transpired to kind of get you prepared for the next one?
I think at that point my roommate actually convinced me to get a road bike. Okay. Because he was an exercise science major, so he kind of had more of a knowledge base of what training is and what you need to do to be able to prepare yourself to get to that quote unquote next level. Yeah. So he kind of looked at me and was like, yeah, you need to get some actual solid cycling base, and to do that you can't do that on a trail. You have to do that on the road. Okay. So that was kind of his way of convincing me to get at that point was a road bike. Okay. Which ended up being a Cannondale touring bike. I think it was a Cannondale T700. Okay. Or something like that with bar end shifters in the drops. Okay. Really old school stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Heavy as can be. I'm pretty sure it was a 28-pound road bike or touring bike at the time. Okay. That's what I had. That's what I could afford at the time. Okay. That's what I used to ride some of the roads around here.
So what do you do with this bike? You just start hitting the roads?
Start hitting some roads. Okay. Start hitting some of the more well traveled, the common routes around here. At that time, the only place I really knew was Pony Pasture. So I would just ride Pony Pasture up and down, just do back and forth laps, and then head back home and kind of do that and use that as my way to start building my base to hopefully get faster. Okay. So I guess you got months, full year between the next event. Yep. So you're riding, you've got months at your riding this road. When you start noticing a difference, when can you? At what point do you able to look back and be this feels different, this feels easier? Was there ever a point? I strung together 2 trails. Okay. That was when I figured out that this was actually working here. Fitness was getting better. Yeah. I don't feel like I'm dying every single time I go out there. But I strung together 2 trails. It was Buttermilk and North Bank. Okay. When I did that, I was like, all right, I can keep going here. This is something to keep building on. And then, eventually I, strung together Forest Hill Park, and that was the whole loop for the Xterra Urban Assault. Okay.
So basically you're able to see you can handle going longer for your rides there. How long? So you see you're getting better. I guess you've gotten some equipment at this point. You've gotten a second bike. You're at N+1. Yep. So you're not riding. I guess are you still riding in shorts and t-shirt?
I'm still riding in shorts.
Still shorts and t-shirt. Okay.
At that point.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I guess you have it. It doesn't sound like you've met any dedicated cyclist at
Nope,
this point. So
not at that point.
Okay, so
I'm
no
still
one's-
more or less. So it's really just me and my then roommate, best friend at the time that got me into it. But yeah, it was just gym shorts and a t-shirt.
Okay.
Yep.
By chance, did you do any research? Did you like do online to like look up anything of what you might do? Or you just figuring it out on your own while you were out on the road?
It was pretty much just figuring it out on my own.
Okay.
It was definitely figuring it out.
Okay.
Because I don't think you really like start to figure out like you don't really learn about like cadence and power and stuff like that. And consistency in heart rate until you get really more serious about cycling. At that time, it was just like I just need saddle time.
Yeah,
that's it. I'm just gonna go pedal.
So what that indicates, it sounds like you'd not done any serious sports beforehand.
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, because that would some of that the training in serious. In training in other sports would then carry over. But if you hadn't, as I hadn't either, right, you wouldn't think about your heart rate. Like I shouldn't go, highest heart rate I can for the whole time.
Exactly.
Like how much watt is like. So anyway, so I understand that you don't know
exactly,
and you don't even know to look.
Nope.
So you're riding. You eventually get to this Xterra race.
Yep.
Second year. Second year you do it. How does it go?
Well, first, my roommate, he asked me, he's like, "You're not going to wear that in a race, are you?"
Okay.
Like, well, it's all I got. So he throws me one of his spare jerseys. Like,
okay.
At least wear a jersey, man.
Right.
So I wear the jersey that he gives me. I think I'm wearing. I may have raced in cargo shorts, for that one.
Yeah. So wait,
yeah.
No padded shorts.
No padded shorts.
Okay, all right.
No padded shorts. I think I may have bought some clipless shoes at that point. By that point,
but still no padded shorts. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go with the race, and then we'll ask about the clipless shoes at that point. So you do the race in the jersey your roommate gives you. Do you notice any difference? You do the race. Let's go with that. How'd the race go? Let's go with
that. Okay. He threw me a jersey, and it happened to be a green jersey.
Okay.
And I was riding a red bike, and it's like, man, you threw me this jersey because you want me to look like a Christmas tree, don't you? It's like, yeah.
It's the only one he had.
Anyways, back to the race. Yeah. So I go out to the race. It was at that point, like the race started underneath the Lee Bridge on Belle Isle.
Okay.
And they do this stupid Le Mans start. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Le Mans start.
What is the Le Mans start?
So in the Le Mans start for cycling, you set your bike about 20 yards up ahead, and then you walk back to the start line.
Okay.
Right. And when they say start, you run to your bike and you do a cyclocross mount onto your bike, and then you start sprinting for the start of the race.
Okay. All right.
Most god awful start that was ever invented for that. But by that point, I think I'd done maybe like 2 other warm-up races prior to the Urban Assault.
Okay.
And I kind of learned the gist of how, in mountain biking, or even crit racing, you hear about the whole shot. Mm-hmm. Right at the start, if you're in a packer group, you want to hit the whole shot, so that you hit the trails first, and especially in a beginner's race, because you don't know what skill levels are around you.
Oh, yeah.
So in mountain biking, generally, if you're stuck behind someone that's of a lesser skill set than you, you're going to be stuck behind him for the entire race. So you kind of learn in mountain bike racing that if you want to win like a beginner level race, you have to burn matches at the beginning to get ahead of those people, so you don't get stuck behind them. Okay. So that was just experience. Coming up to that point, and then as much as I had been riding those trails at that point, you kind of know like the back of your hand. There's a dip coming over here, and there's a route over here that you have to watch out for. There's a log over there, and you kind of have to lift your bike up and bunny hop over it. At this point, so you kind of learn the course I learned the course pretty well. Well ahead of that race, I kind of knew where everything and all the little tricks were at that point.
So you're in the race. You move up to the front, or at least a closer position in the front. How long is the race?
I think that was 12 miles. Yeah,
12 miles. Okay,
10 to 12 miles, I think.
So how does this thing proceed? Do you burn matches? Like, how does it go?
You burn some couple matches, and the way it's funny how mountain bike races tend to end up is that you usually end up riding by yourself. Once it all kind of settles into place, like you're kind of in your place and you're there for the entire race.
Yeah.
So the rest of the front, the faster people are already gone.
Okay.
The people that you're faster than are way back behind you. And there might be a couple people, one or two people that are like within visual distance of you. Mm-hmm. Then again, mountain bike races generally aren't very big either. So top for a big race is like 15 people.
Oh, okay.
So at that point, I found myself in my spot, and which happened to be third.
Okay.
And I finished the race third.
Nice. How'd that feel?
At the time, I didn't really know.
Okay.
I didn't know how to react because I'd never won like a competitive or like placed in a competitive event like that. So I didn't know what to do. But they post the prelim results and stuff like that. You go look at it, and I went up there. I looked. It's like, oh, I got third.
Okay.
Cool. Go back, sit with my friends, and they're congratulating me. It's like, dude, that's really big.
Yeah.
And then they do podiums, right? Mm-hmm. So they call my name. I go up there. I'm standing on podium. I'm like, I don't know what to do up here. So I'm just staying there, woo, hands up in the air. And it's like, I got third place. Like, great. And then they give me a little medal. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Take the medal. Head back to my friends. I'm like, cool. I got third. Yeah.
That's still great, but I understand not knowing exactly how to feel. I mean, hope you're not mad about it, but it being an odd thing. So you get third place here. You were clipped in.
I was clipped in.
You were clipped in.
Yes.
Okay, let's go back to that, and we'll get back to your placement. How soon before the race did you try clipping in?
I would say about 4 months.
Okay, so you had some experience being clipped in,
and that was just plain hilarity.
Really?
Yeah.
How'd you like being clipped in?
It was weird.
Okay.
It just first of all, it just felt weird being attached to your bike like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fact that when you start riding a bike, you're generally on platform pedals in sneakers, and generally when you want to stop, you kind of just lift your foot up and place it down.
Yeah. Not the case.
Of course, not with clipped pedals. So there's a little bit of a learning curve to that. And there's one specific instant where that really came back to bite me.
Okay.
I think I was coming back from class one time, and it may have been like the third or fourth time I'd ridden clipless shoes. Mm-hmm. But I wore my clipless shoes to class and then rode them back.
Okay.
And at that point, I think I was living at the Broad and Belvedere apartments at VCU.
Mm-hmm.
And then, there's a median on Broad Street right there at Broad and Belvedere, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm on the median, and I couldn't cross the street yet, so I had to stop.
Yeah.
Right. And I tried twisting my foot out, and it wasn't coming out.
Yeah.
And literally, I just fell over like a tree in the middle of the median in front of 15 cars.
Did anybody even look? Did it come out or anything? Nothing.
No,
You just
of course not.
You just fell over. Bruised ego, I imagine.
Oh yeah,
but no serious injuries or anything.
I managed to unclip my foot, and I looked on my bike. It's like, so this is how it's going to be, huh?
Yeah.
All right. I get it.
I feel everyone has that moment where maybe they were doing fine clipping in, and then they have that not clip out quick enough and just tip over somewhere.
I think everyone has that experience on first trying clipless pedals.
Or at least they should. So at least they know how bad it can go. I survived the tipping over. It was not the worst thing ever.
I think it's kind of a rite of passage.
I've yet to meet anyone who said they didn't. Well, yeah, I don't think I've not met anyone who once they talked about being clipped in, they didn't tip over at some point, because I can't imagine you having that skill before being clipped in. So you clip in. You race. The race goes well. Third place. In the jersey, after wearing the jersey, did you feel anything about the jersey? Were you like, I'm never going to wear this again? Or you're like, this actually helped. It felt better. Like, did you notice anything actually wearing the jersey?
It felt better.
Okay.
It's like, growing up, elementary school, you're tossed a cotton T-shirt and like some gym shorts. Like this is all you know.
Yeah.
And then you start getting introduced into like tech T-shirts and tech materials that actually wick sweat off. Like I definitely felt the difference between sweat actually wicking off my body versus like being absorbed into a cotton T-shirt and just making me heavier.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so maybe there's something into these cycling clothes. But I still didn't have it in me to buy shorts.
Did you not think about buying shorts, or did you just like, I'm not going to wear them?
For a while, it was, I'm not going to wear these because these are ugly.
And no one told you to wear them under your shorts?
No.
When do you buy padded shorts? When does that happen? I assume you wear them now.
I absolutely wear them now.
Yeah, okay.
I will not go on a bike without, unless it's like down the block, I will not go out for a ride without padded shorts.
Okay.
But I think it was only a couple months after that race that I finally bit the bullet and bought some padded shorts. And like the first time going out in like a full like cycling kit is awkward.
It is so
awkward.
Yeah. It's like, I'm supposed to be.
And I think I still actually remember the first time I stepped out. It was definitely like a cool fall morning.
Yeah.
I opened the door, padded shorts, and these were bike shorts. These weren't bibs.
Okay, these are shorts.
So these were just padded shorts and like a cycling jersey.
Yeah.
I walk out there. I look out over my balcony. I'm like, I feel naked.
It is, it's thin, sweat-wicking material. It sounds like it's probably not your normal clothing,
and it doesn't leave a lot to the imagination.
And that's another thing. I don't think I've asked everyone about that. About when you first, particularly the guys. I think the ladies, it's a smooth transition. How awkward was that? It was awkward for me. Won't go into that. So you wear the kit. You have a kit. Do you recall what shorts you got?
What's that?
Do you recall the shorts that you got?
What kind of shorts do I have?
Yeah. That you did get, because I imagine you're not still using.
Oh, good God, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I just bought some I probably just found some Segoy shorts that I found on Jensen USA or something like that. That was reasonable enough for what I needed to do.
Okay.
For what I was making at the time, which was not much.
Okay. College budget.
I was still riding a Franken bike at that point.
Is it still college?
This was still more or less college. This is probably my first year out of college, so real job-ish at that point.
So now you've got a kit, you've got a podium under your belt.
Yep.
What's next? So you start setting your eyes on bigger events. Like, I can compete now. Like, what kind of happens in your
definitely. Like after I definitely got my appetite wet for racing, and I enjoyed it. Just learning and like seeing the progression was actually very important to me.
Okay.
For me to continue to race.
Yeah.
And at that point, that was the point when I actually started actually seeking out races.
Okay.
And that was actually about the time when the Virginia Off-Road Series started popping up.
Okay.
So that was a collection of, I would say, 15 to 20 races that were all around the state of Virginia.
Okay.
And it was basically just a schedule that was put together for I don't know if you know Woody Elliott, but he ran the entire Virginia Off-Road Series calendar. So he would go into discussions with all the race directors. Hey, I got this series together. It's a great way to promote your event, and develop this whole calendar of mountain biking events like all around the state of Virginia. So I started more or less following all the ones that were within like an hour and a half to 2 hour drive of Richmond.
Okay.
And that ended up being racing 1 to 2 times a month.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Did you have to be like? Are these still just like races anyone can do, or you have to like have a like USA Cycling registered or anything?
No, it was definitely just like general, just sign up and show up and do the race. Yeah.
Okay. So you're doing you start like doing this Virginia Off-Road Series, and so like 2 races a month or so.
At least, yeah.
Okay.
During the spring and summer.
Any of those races that stand out to you? doing those races? Either because it was just like
Massanutten.
Massanutten? Okay.
Massanutten. That was always. It's always at that time. It was always on my calendar, and I always did it. Mm-hmm. But it was just a god awful race.
Okay.
Because like that's like, that's in the mountains of like the Harrisburg area.
Okay.
So like, and I don't ride out there. I still don't ride out there.
Yeah.
So to do those types of climbs, without ever having to do those, without having to regularly do those was a tall task.
Yeah. So you do that. You've gone back to do that race.
What's that?
Have you gone back to do that race, or is it...
Not since then.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably been at least easily 10 years, I would say, since I've done that race. But back then, I probably did it 3 years in a row.
How'd that race feel? I mean, was it just difficult?
It was survival.
Okay.
That was it. For me, there wasn't racing that race.
Okay.
It was just go out, do it, and just come back in one piece.
Okay. How often do you know that ahead of time?
Back then, I did a lot of research.
Okay.
Before I went out to these things to try to figure out what to expect. So if it was like the nice thing about the Virginia Off-Road Series, since it was a grassroots in Richmond, back then you had the Poor Farm Series in Ashland, which was a 3-race series. You had Camp Hilbert, which was also a 3-race series. You had the Urban Assault, which was here in Richmond. So you had a solid block of 7 or 8 races that were in the Richmond area.
Okay.
So I more or less knew what the terrain was going to look like around these. But for the other ones that are like in like Bedford, Virginia,
right,
Massanutten, some of the Northern Virginia trails, I would actually look up, go on the internet and like research, try to figure out what the terrain would actually look like on these things. So I'd go on like message forums. I try to find park descriptions and what trails it would look like, and just trying to piece together things of what I could expect. Yeah,
because did Strava exist by then? Did ride with GPS kind of thing, Because that's what now I'll be like, go ride with GPS. Like, if I don't have the thing, I can take the turn by turn and put it in there and see the elevation profile. Either way, so good on you for at least trying to do some research, before those sites existed. So you do this. You're doing these races. Are you just racing, or do you feel like is all your riding at this time? These are the years like right after you get out of college. Is all your riding like I'm getting ready for the next race? Like I'm getting ready for the next race. Are you like was that kind of like where you're
I don't think I ever really got that serious about it. Like as far as like I don't know if you're talking in reference to training, like I've never really had like a specific like regimented training plan. It was just kind of go out, ride hard, come back, and then kind of do it over again. But like it was always just kind of like that was my prep for like the next race. It was just like kind of go out, do my thing, come back, and go out that weekend race.
So you were still enjoying your rides. It wasn't just like this is only the prep for the race. It's like I'm still enjoying this. This is fun.
Oh, absolutely. All the rides I was doing back then was strictly for enjoyment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still mostly around the rides to get prepared, but mostly around the James River Park system?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Had you met more people at this point in time?
At that point, yes.
Okay.
Because like I referenced earlier, like there really wasn't like a good core cluster of cyclists around Richmond. Like there were no like RABA. There really weren't any groups like for mountain biking or anything like that at that point. So everyone that I was meeting that actually rode in the Richmond area were at races. Mm-hmm. So those ended up being a lot of people that I ended up riding with, like just in for casual rides around the area and there. So those ended up being like some core people.
Was there anybody, if you were riding with them frequently, was there anybody that you rode with that like you always thought about like you want to do better than them?
Oh yeah, that brings it out. I think you develop some rivalries in racing. You definitely do. I definitely had my nemesis.
Okay.
I've had 1 or 2 nemesis during the times that I've raced. And like you know who those people are because they're always either one place ahead of you or one place behind you. But there's always this kind of competitive tension between you two. You'll never acknowledge it. in mountain biking, we're all friends, but you know it's there.
Okay. So you're doing the rides. Are you still doing any road biking? Do you still have the Cannondale touring bike?
Oh yeah. I definitely had I was doing like a good mixture between trail and road cycling at that point.
Okay. So I'm guessing so now it's like a few years of you riding regularly at this point in time. Do you notice you've noticed a difference? I'm guessing at this point in time in your health and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. I think at that point, I was pretty easily straining together all three trails. Buttermilk, North Bank, and Forest Hill, and that was all I knew. So I would just continuously do that all the time. I had my kind of own set, 25-ish mile road loop, which was generally, through U of R, Pony Pasture, come back at here. And at that point, I don't think I'd discovered the East End roads yet, towards the airport. Bear in mind, back then, Cap Trail did not exist.
Right. You didn't have a Cap Trail to get access.
So getting out in that direction could be kind of harrowing at the time, because, riding with traffic and no shoulder. To get to that point where you can split out there was a little bit unnerving, I should say.
Without having either someone to get you out there, I wouldn't naturally think to go ride into the East End past Churchill kind of area kind of thing. It doesn't lend well to ride, and without knowing there's some Verina, there's some safer areas to ride out there. So I can understand. So you're doing a little bit of road riding still happening. The mountain biking racing. What are you taking with you when you're doing the race? Are you taking a bottle? Are you taking hydration, that kind of thing?
It really depended on the race.
Okay.
So I mean, if it was a trail that I was familiar with.
Okay.
So 6 mile general format back then was a 6 mile loop, and if it was a local race, I generally knew what the loop was, how much I was going to be exerting myself on these loops. So a lot of times I would just bring a couple bottles.
Okay.
I'd bring one with me on the race loop, and then just kind of leave 1 or 2 bottles at the race start.
Okay.
And then just kind of switch out bottles.
Ooh, okay.
After 1 or 2 laps here and there. But if it was something a more a backcountry trail, like a Massanutten, or some of that, I would definitely go camp back.
Okay.
Because those were generally 1 lap loops.
Okay.
With maybe an aid station in there, maybe. Yeah. So you really didn't know if you're going to have water.
Yeah.
At those races, so I tend to overpack for a lot of things. So usually I'll have a bottle on me, multi-tool tire lever. I'll have CO2 cartridge. Back then that was before tubeless. Mm-hmm. So I would have 2 tubes on me.
Okay.
2 CO2 cartridges.
Yeah.
And some kind of nutrition.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long did it take to kind of dial that in to kind of make sure you had all that stuff? Because I imagine those early rides you didn't think to carry 2 tubes and the CO2 cartridges and the right nutrition. How did it how that kind of formed to I should make sure I have all the hydration that I need to have. I should make sure I have a snack because I got hungry that one time. How'd that
I always prepared for races I was just going to go for a ride and then bring a little bit extra.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was just a kind of a learning, exercise in trial and error.
Okay.
Just trying to figure out what I needed during a regular ride, and then just kind of translating that into what I needed for a race.
Okay. All right. Side question: did you pick up any other sports in this time?
I did not.
You did not. Okay. So
yeah.
so road cycling, mountain biking.
Road cycling, mountain biking.
Okay. I'm skipping ahead here, but you have a gravel bike as well, right?
Today I do, yes.
Okay.
Actually, technically I don't. It is a converted cyclocross bike.
How converted? It just has wider tires?
It's just wider tires.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Converted enough. What are you doing with that? You just like to do some gravel, or you've done some backpacking?
Mix it up here and there. Yeah, for that one I'll do a decent amount of cyclocross racing.
Okay.
With that, this year's probably the first year I really got into the gravel riding.
Okay.
And then sometimes I'll take it down to the trails around here. So
okay.
It's burly enough and sturdy enough that you can do most of the trails around here on a gravel bike.
Okay. So mountain bike racing, cyclocross racing, apparently just mentioned. When did that happen? When did you decide to give that a whirl?
Probably, I would say a couple years after I started mountain biking racing.
Okay.
I was actually at the time I was getting tired of just mountain bike racing.
Okay.
So I was looking for something different. And my friend Greg Whitwer, I don't know if you know Greg Whitwer.
Right. Yep.
He's been in the cyclocross racing for even longer than I started. Even before I started like riding a bike. And I worked with him at the VCU gym.
Okay.
So he would always tell me, horror stories and, about how muddy and disgusting, you would get in like these cyclocross races, but it always sounded awesome.
Yeah.
So that he's the one who kind of got me introduced into cyclocross racing. So, at that time, this is again, going back to that old Cannondale touring bike.
Yeah.
I converted that into a cyclocross bike.
Really? Okay.
At the time. And I think I did one of the, it had to be Mark Junkerman's, like Sorry Honey series. I tried to use that for a cyclocross race, and it was just a complete disaster.
Really? Okay. This bike is just terrible for this?
It was
like,
terrible. You can't shoulder it. It was heavy, it was sluggish.
Yeah.
So that was the time that I decided I just needed to upgrade some of my equipment.
Okay.
On there. So I had to bid farewell to that Cannondale T700.
Okay. You sell it?
I gave it a good send off.
Okay.
So do you remember the Martin's Tour of Richmond?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was actually my first 100-mile ride.
Okay.
And so at that point, I was in between bikes. So I had bought a new Giant Defy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was going to give my Cannondale T700 a send-off by running it in the Martin's Tour of Richmond.
Okay, but you had the Defy.
I had the Defy.
Okay.
And my friend was like, why
would you do that? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, I got to give this bike a good send-off. So I did the Martin's Tour of Richmond, 100 miles. It felt reasonable. It was okay. I finished it.
Okay.
And then, that was the first year they did the Martin's Tour of Richmond.
Okay.
So I don't know if they did it in subsequent years, but like when you cross the finish line, they would announce who was crossing the finish line.
Really? Okay.
And my friend had finished. He was like eating barbecue or something like that with the other finishes.
Yeah.
And they announced my name. It's like, hey, here comes the line is Matt Juaneza. And my friend just kind of jumped up, and he didn't know I was going to ride that thing. He thought I was going to ride the new bike.
Yeah. And
he just looked at me. He's like, I have no idea how that thing finished in one piece.
Had you done that kind of close to that distance prior to that?
No.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. At that point, I was definitely doing regular 50-mile rides.
Sure.
But I had definitely not done
like 50-mile road rides, not
road
50
rides.
Okay.
Yeah. But I had not done a 100-mile distance. So I was, being me, it's like I'm fairly conservative and about my abilities and stuff. Yeah. That's just like, so I was like, there's no way I could do 100 miles because I was like, I could barely do 50 miles by myself. And then, my friend's like, well, that's the thing. You're doing 50 miles by yourself, but in this, you're going to be riding in a group. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you probably won't have any trouble, finishing 100 miles in this thing. So I was like, I think you should do it. Okay. And I'm pretty sure I signed up like the night before. And of course, it's like a 7 a.m. start. So I show up there, and my friend found me. It's like, oh, great, you showed up.
Didn't believe in you at all. How did it? So how big did the group seem? A few people. I've not done it. I did not do the Tour of Richmond. In fact, I didn't. My riding started after, but
I did it.
I've had enough people to tell me about this thing. It's like, I missed out clearly. Like, when you did the event, did you ride with people? Did you find someone to kind of ride with when you did?
Yeah, I definitely found it was interesting because I actually found a group of mountain bikers to ride with.
Oh, really?
At that time, I was actually doing a fair amount of volunteer trail building. Okay. Trail build days. So I actually got to know Nathan Burrell a pretty good amount, along with some of the other people that regularly built trails at the time. And I think it was probably within like the first 15 miles that I actually ran into their group.
Okay.
And of course, like being mountain bikers, like, hey,
yeah, right.
Like,
You
just ride
recognize
with us.
people.
I'm like, cool. So just kind of hung with them for the next 85 miles, and it was a blast.
But were they on mountain bikes or with?
No, they were on road bikes.
They were road bikes. Okay.
Yeah,
but
they were definitely on road bikes.
Mountain bike regulars. Okay. All right. So you do this ride with them. They announce your names. How'd you feel at the end of this 100-mile ride?
It was an accomplishment for me.
Okay.
Because I mean, like I said, it's like from the start, from the first time I like picked up mountain biking.
Yeah.
To that point, it was all just regular progression. At that point. So again, it's like that. Just being able to see myself progress from barely being able to get through a 5-mile ride.
Yeah.
Into doing a 100-mile ride.
Yeah.
That was exciting for me.
Yeah, that's huge. What are we talking, like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years?
I would say 3 years.
3 years? Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure when the first Martin's Tour of Richmond was, but I would say that's about that time frame.
Okay. You get the hundo under your belt. Do you think you would do that again? Do you think at that time, did you think like, I'd do this again? And you're like, nope, that was a good send off for the bike. I will never do that distance again.
Definitely the latter. I was like, that was a good distance on this bike. I'm never going to do that again. I got the 100 notch and that was it. Like I had no plans to do that kind of distance again.
Okay. How much more comfortable was the Defy over this?
It was 1,000,000 times more comfortable. It's
Yeah.
like it's just, you know, when you get a taste of what a good steak tastes like.
Yeah.
No, there's a big difference.
Yeah. Why would I eat the rest of
Yeah.
this?
Why would you go back to that kind of thing?
I also had a giant Defy. I actually have a giant Defy in the other room. So I'm quite aware. I started out with a giant Contend. It was aluminum, and then moved to the Defy. So
okay.
yes, I'm quite aware of the brand, or that model rather. So you do this 100-mile ride, Tour of Richmond, road ride, and then you go back. You kind of keep doing your racing and things like that, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Have you upgraded your mountain bike at this point in time? Have you changed mountain bikes, or were you still on the same bike?
Yeah, I've definitely at that point. I definitely upgraded my mountain bike at that point.
Okay.
Remember earlier I kind of referred to my mountain bike as a Franken bike.
Yeah.
So you know, I started with $350 Specialized hard rock, and I was like, yeah, I don't like the way how these cranks feel. Yeah. It's like I'm gonna go upgrade these cranks. So you know, at that point I was a big eBay person, so you know, try to find like the high end components for like as cheap as possible. So you know that snowball started rolling, and at some point I think. You know, bear in mind, this is a $350 bike total. Right, this is a bike, which means the frame is like $75. I think at some point I ended up with a $500 fork on a $50 frame. And I was like, I think it's time to upgrade this bike. So I think I found it was the then Rowlett's bicycle shop. It's where Pedal Power is today.
Okay.
They had, I think it was a Rocky Mountain Vertex.
Okay.
Hardtail cross country mountain bike frame.
Okay.
And it just happened to be in my price range.
Okay.
$250. And I was like, I can do that.
Yeah.
And now it makes sense to put these parts on that frame.
Okay. I see.
So I parted out the old mountain bike frame and stuck them on the new frame, and that's how I ended up with a new an upgraded mountain bike at that time.
Nice. So then you just had the old frame left over.
Yep.
You bought a whole bike?
No.
It was just a frame.
Frame only.
Just a frame.
So
okay.
I parted out the old bike, and because I had upgraded the old bike so much, I was like, it doesn't make sense to sell this bike like this. It's like, I'm just gonna pull all the parts off this thing and moving on to the new frame. It makes more sense like that. With the very expensive parts on there.
With those upgrades, moving to the Franken bike, did you feel the upgrades? Were they noticeable, or were they mental upgrades kind of thing?
Oh, it was definitely noticeable upgrades.
Okay.
Because especially when you start upgrading, I'm sure you've noticed this too. It's like when you start progressing through higher end components, they tend to weigh less, especially in the wheels. So going from heavy 200 and 2,500 kilogram or gram wheel set to like a 1,400 gram wheel set.
Super
big
light
differences on there. So you go from riding a tank to a Ferrari, basically. So it's like, oh yeah, this feels great. It's like let's keep doing this. Let's buy more high end components.
That I can understand. But, it's a budget, and at a certain point, getting more components. Not saying it applies to your situation, but I think we have to question like, how much more is this going to really help? Like, how much more money if I throw at this and go from that to the next higher? Like, how much more is that going to help? Like, there's certainly, Walmart bike. There's certainly upgrades you can do. Clearly, we're not going to start with the Walmart bike, but there's upgrades you can do that will be hugely beneficial. And then there's certain high end ones that like you wouldn't notice a difference from like the mid range one.
Oh yeah, I definitely had. I think when I really started getting into that upgrade mindset, like I was kind of in that. It's like, oh yeah, if I replace this component with something that weighs like 10 grams less, it's like, yeah, that's going to get me there. Yeah. And then it just kept going like that. So I kind of back then it was called the weight weenie mindset.
Oh yeah, it's still there.
I don't know if that's still kind of referred to today, but like I was definitely like gram counting at that point. So like I would fret over like 15 grams between these two components, but there was a $75 price difference on these. Like, I'm going to spend the extra $75 on this thing that's going to weigh 15 grams less, and that's going to get me my next podium.
But I think it happens to a lot of us who start getting into riding, particularly when we start riding with others and seeing all the equipment and all the kind of stuff, and knowing we can upgrade a component as opposed to getting a whole new bike. I think it happens to a lot of us who are riding, but at least you were racing. Yeah. Like there was you're becoming a weight weenie, staying a weight weenie, but you're racing. So like those are grams that you won't be moving along when you're racing, right? Not saying I can justify all that, but just saying there's some minor justification in there, because you're at least using the bike. Yep. Pushing it to its limits. Did you ever feel like this bike isn't good enough? Like, did you ever feel like?
Oh, always. Yeah, there's always a nicer bike out there. It's like, oh, that one's more blingy. Okay. It's like, oh, that one's got colored hubs. I like that one better.
Yeah. What bike shop were you going to?
I've gone through several like that. Back then, it just depended on which team I was on. Okay. So back then, let's go back to the Virginia Off-Road Series, right? Okay, sure. After the first season, we'll say I'm quote unquote unattached. Okay. The second season, I kind of met Jason Hopkins. Okay. I don't know if you're familiar with him. But he was kind of like he started up the Design Physics racing team at that point. So that was like the big race, mountain bike race team in the Richmond area. So I got hooked up with them. So, and their shop sponsor at that point was Rowlett's Bicycles. Okay. So I went to Rowlett's Bicycles for all of my parts, services. Obviously I'm on a team, so they give you some preferential treatment in terms of service turnaround and part specials, right? Okay. And then I think from there I went to it was a team called River City Cycling Collective. Okay. So it ended up being a splinter of the Design Physics team. Okay. With me and 3 other guys that broke off to the team, and the shop sponsor there ended up being Pedal Power. Okay. Which was the shop that replaced Rowlett's at that point. When that team went defunct, I went over to 3 Sports. Okay. So it just really depended on who I was attached to at that point, which shop that I go to.
There's a chance that maybe you were bad luck for these shops. I just want to say that because I think all of them have gone under.
I try not to think of it like that.
Sorry. How did it feel like joining a team? Because before you were just like doing your own thing, and then like how'd that happen? Like, did you meet some people who were on the team? Did you go out looking for a team? Like, how did it feel to actually join a team at that point?
I thought it was interesting because I feel like a lot of people kind of run into this after they graduate college. Is they start to have difficulties meeting new people.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So for me, it was exciting to be on a team because I was meeting all these new people. So all of a sudden, like my team kind of became my social outlet. So we were having team rides, team lunches, team dinners, team happy hours, and stuff like that. So that all of a sudden became my social life. Yeah. So it was exciting.
That I can understand. I will tell us here. I don't say I don't have a huge social circle, but like pre-cycling, it was not huge. You know, I
Right.
have my good friends that I've known for a long time because I've also been in Richmond forever, you know, to various degrees. And yeah, it is nice to see your social circle grows, right? You start hanging out on times when it's not the bike, and it's like, oh, y'all are actually decent humans when you're not on the bike, kind of thing. So yes, I can appreciate and I like your social circle grows, and like, oh, these are actually nice people to hang out with, right?
Yeah.
You don't just ride together.
Oh, it's always funny, like when so if it's a non-cycling event, like the first time you meet these people out in normal clothes, right?
Right.
You get to the bar and you're like, wait.
Yeah. You see, is that you? Yeah.
Is that you ride that Blue Giant, right? It's like, oh man, that's what you look like in normal clothes? It's like, wow.
You recognize chins quite well. Speaking of recognizing people, there's a guy I ride with sometimes, D Knuckles. He's got this great mustache. It's got to be like this wide. And so when I can see the mustache before I see him, you know, out on rides. And not quite the same scenario, but one day I think he was out and like it was a cold day and he had on like a baklava, the full face. And so his mustache was covered. And so I think I rode past, I was like, D, you can't cover the mustache. We have to be able to see the mustache. But you're right. There was a bunch of people I've seen outside of the kit, and I'm like, oh, like that's what you look like without all the stuff on, kind of thing. So either way, I'm glad that you joined the team. You're enjoying the company of the team. River City Cycling Collective.
Yep.
3 Sports next.
3 Sports.
Okay.
I think was I on a team after that? No, like I stayed unattached for the next couple of years, and today I'm in on the Altius cycling team.
Altius.
Yep.
Okay. Who Altius? Like I know Altius. I've heard this name. What's their affiliation of any kind? Like is it just a group? Is it people that ride together? Like are they attached to a shop or?
There's no attachment to a shop. It's just basically a group of guys that like. Well, their thing is cyclocross.
Okay.
They're all cyclocross like nerds.
Okay.
So their primary discipline is definitely cyclocross racing, but everyone on the team does a little bit of everything.
So you all like train together now, or just
every
ride
so
together?
often? But it's definitely more of a social club.
Okay.
I would say. We get serious when we need to get serious.
Okay.
But it's definitely just lighthearted, easygoing group of guys that if you want to go find a group ride to do and you want to hang out with your teammates, then there's generally one that's out there.
Okay. And that's where you're at now, Altius.
Yep.
Altius, okay. So what races did you do this year? I know you did a few. I know of, right?
Done a few.
Okay.
So the big one was Gravel Nationals.
Okay.
How that came about was the Gravel Nationals was the first big race I've done since COVID.
Okay.
In COVID.
Okay.
We'll say that.
Yeah. Sure.
The previous big race that I'd done was the SM 100, the Shenandoah 100.
Okay.
Shenandoah Mountains 100. Okay. So that was a 100-mile backcountry mountain bike race in the kind of like the Harrisonburg area. So that was my capstone race pre-COVID.
Okay.
So COVID happened, and there was no racing.
Yeah.
Really, I think in 2021, like some of the races started coming back. So I dipped my toes in a little bit, for a couple races in 21.
Okay.
But when 22 rolled, I found out that Gravel Nationals was coming to Virginia.
Okay.
I was like, I want to do a big race this year. So I did Gravel Nationals, and that was about 2 months ago, I think.
Okay. The ride in the Shenandoah, I think I've already forgotten the name of it. The ride in the Shenandoah, the 100-mile mountain bike race.
We'll never do it again. That was one and done.
Okay. I was going to ask, like, how did that go? Did you have any, like...
Oh, man.
Had you done any distance close to that? Were you still at, like...
No.
What was your closest mountain
So
bike
this
distance?
was... I would say the mindset going into the SM 100 was pretty close to the same mindset that I had going into Richmond tour Richmond.
Okay.
Never done any kind of mountain bike riding in general, probably more than like a 40-mile ride.
Ooh, okay.
Right.
Wow.
Not only that, but nothing in the mountains.
Okay.
So the SM 100, if we're going to be exact here, it's 96.2 miles.
got to do it again to get to
you're welcome to ride the extra 3.8, but most people elect not to.
Yeah.
But I believe is it 12,000 feet of climbing? I know it's over 10. It's definitely over 10,000 feet. I'd have to go back to my Strava to look at it. But yeah, so I mean, like definitely the same kind of mindset as the Richmond Tour of Richmond.
Yeah.
Or, sorry, Martin's Tour of Richmond.
Right.
So you know we went out there with a couple buddies. We camped out the night before, and it was interesting. So me and my friend we're gonna go pick up our race packet. So we're walking up to registration, and we knew it was gonna storm a little bit while we're out there. This is the night before, and we're walking up there, and like, dude, it's getting kind of dark.
Yeah.
I was like, that's fine. It's the mountains. They'll probably just like blow over in like a couple of minutes or something like that. So we're standing in line. We're getting pretty close to the front line to pick up our race packets and drop off our goodie bags or our sag bags or whatever we want to call it.
Yeah.
For the aid stations, and then lightning starts flashing around. We're like, ooh. So we grab our registration packets, and then I kid you not, within 10 yards of our car, you could see the wall of rain coming towards us.
Yeah.
And we just look at each other. It's like, we need to run now. So we run, and I'm car camping. So I jump into my car and like quickly close the doors. And like no less than a couple seconds after I close the door, all hell just kind of breaks loose. It's just pouring rain. It starts hailing out there. And it's super loud, and this is the worst part about it.
Yeah.
So I'm in my car. I came prepared. So I had downloaded a couple of movies onto my laptop, and then Woody actually texted me. He's like, "How's it going up there?" So I just take my phone and I take a quick video of what's going on.
Yeah. And
hail's just pinging off everything. You literally can't hear yourself think at that point.
Yeah.
I texted him that. It's like, oh, that looks terrible. It's like, yeah, screw you, man. And I felt sorry for the two guys that were actually tent camping.
Ooh, okay.
So they were tent camping in a 2-person tent, and I guess there was like a hole in like the top of the tent or something like that. But like apparently the next morning, like they were telling us a story, but like they were just like standing up, like holding onto the supports, holding on for dear life, just praying this tent would not fly away. And they didn't get a second of sleep because everything was wet.
Yeah. It
ended up raining all night. Wake up call was at like 4:30, 5 o'clock or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it legitimately stopped raining about 3:30. And I think at that point, that was when I actually like fell asleep. Yeah. And then of course, like someone starts walking around with a cowbell.
Oh man.
Wake up call. And wake up call, everyone gets out of their cars, and like everyone's just like quiet. And everyone knows what we're thinking.
Yeah.
Like if one person had said it, like I think we all would have just like, nah, I'm just gonna crack a beer and I'm just gonna sit here.
Yeah. No
one said anything, so everyone lined up for the race, and we did the race.
How was the terrain? The terrain was just like super muddy the whole time?
It was, well, it's a mountain, so a lot of that ends up washing off.
Okay.
Except for like the lower valley areas.
Okay.
So like Braley's Pond was like a mud pit.
Okay.
Basically. So like going up the trails were actually pretty good.
Okay. How do you feel around like mile 70 or so?
Death.
Really?
Mile 70, that's aid station 5. I think it's aid station 5, and that's an evil one. Because that's at the top of like the tallest climb, and that's where you can get your drop bag.
Okay.
But that's also where they have pizzas. So it's tradition to have a slice of pizza at aid station 5.
Okay.
But there's also the sag van for you to jump into in case you decide not to finish the race at that point.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of temptation at that aid station to convince you to kind of quit right there.
So your friend was with you, right?
I think so that was the first year they did the 100K. So you had a breakoff point where you can go back to camp and do the 100K. I continued on for the 100-miler.
Okay.
So at that point I was by myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get to your 96.2 miles and finish this thing. Are you just like, fuck this bike, like I'm done? Why am I?
Oh yeah.
It's like, you know.
I didn't want to look at my bike for like the next month. First of all, it took me 14 hours to finish.
14 hours, dude. Okay, all right.
It took 14 hours to finish. Get back to camp, and you know everyone else had finished. Like I think a couple people had finished in like 10 and a half hours. A couple finished in just over 12 hours, and I was the last one in the group to finish the 100-miler. You know, I come rolling in. I'm like half dead. You know, basically, I'm just like fumbling around for something, anything to eat. Yeah. Because like I just didn't have the energy right at that point to walk across the field to, you know, the dinner that they had. Yeah. For us, and I can't remember who it was, but like someone just kind of looked at me. He's like, "Did you just finish the whole thing?" I was like, "Yeah." It's like, "Dude, that's awesome." And I'm just looking at him. I was like, "Can you just give me a beer?" Yeah. I'm just going to go get a beer. Tell me where the shower is. I'm going to grab something to eat, and I'm going to bed. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm aware of that feeling. Like I'm just done. I'm not participating in anything else. So one and done?
One and done. That was a one and done.
Okay. Are there any other big monster events you think you would want to do that you already know of?
Not that I know of. Okay. I never know what's coming up. There's always going to be something that comes up. You know, someone might mention something. It's like, hey, you should do this race. It's like, yeah, I haven't had any interest in that. Mm-hmm. And then literally like a month before the race, it's like, dude, I signed up. When are you going? But it's usually something just sporadic up in the air. So I don't know. Probably yes.
Okay. All right. Why do you keep riding? Why do you keep doing the races and doing all the riding? Why do you keep doing this?
That's a very multifaceted question there.
It is. It's a point.
Why? I'll go backwards.
Okay.
I do the races because I've learned this about myself, is that I'm actually fairly competitive. I like the feeling of competing against other people. I like trying to measure myself in my abilities against what other people can do. Okay. So it's a good barometer, and it keeps me on my toes to keep progressing. Also, why I keep racing is the social aspect. You know, I meet a lot of people that are actually good friends today. Yeah. That I ride with. Very good example of this is you know who Lester Brown is, right? Yeah. I met him when I first started mountain bike racing. Okay. And he started mountain bike racing at about the same time. And we just kind of kept this long-standing relationship over the last, 10 plus years. Yeah. Just built around cycling and mountain biking. I don't think I would know half the people that I know today without cycling. So definitely like the social aspect of it, of just racing in general, and cycling is what keeps me going. Okay. And then, why do I keep riding is the fitness aspect of it. Mm-hmm. So I alluded to this earlier, that I used to be, over 200 pounds, right?
Which is hard to see, by the way. Just
most people say that.
I understand that's possible, but clearly it's hard to see.
Many people say that about me. Graduating high school, I was definitely about 190-ish. Okay. Ballooned up to about 215 throughout college. So I wouldn't say I was like a big person, but because I was powerlifting, so it was more muscular big than like just kind of rotund big. Okay. I would say, but bigger than weighed more than I really wanted at that point.
Sure. Okay.
So, cycling is what I chose to be my mechanism to get myself down to where I wanted to be. Okay. So I think before I graduated college, I had worked my way down to about 185. Okay. And then I want to say, 4 years later, I think I worked my way down to 170. Okay. And then, I think I hit this epiphany when I was 29. Okay. That I wanted to lose 30 pounds by the time I turned 30.
Okay.
So at that point, I was like 170, 175.
So, okay, 170.
We'll say somewhere between 170 and 180.
Okay.
30 pounds. You know, that gets me back to around where I am today, 150.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, I'm going to do this.
Okay.
I'm going to lose 30 pounds by the time I turn 30.
Okay.
So that was that winter. So that was my New Year's resolution.
Okay.
Of that year. So that was January, all the way up until my birthday, which is coming up next month in August. So I had, you know, more or less 8.5 months to lose all that weight.
Okay.
Right. That in itself, I would say, was a very odd journey.
Okay.
A lot of ups and lots of downs.
Okay.
I think the weight started coming off quickly for me. So there was a point where I was actually losing about 2 pounds a week.
Okay.
When the summer months really started hitting there, and I really started getting into gear and riding and stuff like that. But I was restricting my calorie intake so much.
Okay.
That's why the weight was just kind of melting off there. And you know, I started at 180, got down to 170. I was like, oh, great, let's just keep this going. You know, kept restricting my calories, got down to 160 really quick. I was like, huh, okay, let's see if I get down to 160. So get down to 160, right? And I was like, all right, let's see if I can get down to 150. You know, get down to 150, and you know, that was my 30 for you know, my 30 on my 30th birthday.
Yeah,
and I want to say I probably had some level of body dysmorphia. Okay. At that point.
Okay.
Because I was like, I wonder if I can get down to 140.
Okay.
So I kept going.
You were pushing limits.
I was pushing the limit there, and I had got down to 140. It was definitely like September timeframe. I stepped on the scale and it read 139 pounds. I was like, all right, I think that's enough.
So, but you're doing all the riding, so you weren't using any loss in abilities to ride at this time. Right?
No,
okay.
At least nothing that was noticeable to myself. You know, when you lose that much weight, you're losing power. Yeah. Also, but like I think I kind of more or less kept the same power to weight ratio. Okay. It's just that I wasn't really getting stronger or faster. Okay. I was just kind of staying consistent.
Right, with your abilities. Okay.
With my abilities.
Losing the weight. Okay.
And I think I started hitting an epiphany that I'd probably gone too far. Okay. When people really started saying like, "Matt, you're really skinny," and I think it started. At first, I was taking those as compliments. So I think I was at a Yacht and Dawn or some of that, and Lester had something to me. He's like, "Matt, you're looking race fit, man. You're looking good." And I was like, "Cool, thanks, man." Yeah. So I was like, "Yeah, all right, yeah, I look good." And then I think I was at Charm City Cross, up in Baltimore for a cyclocross race, and I think that was the first time I'd seen Greg since I lost all that weight. So it'd been like a solid 7 months since the last time I saw Greg Whitwer. Yeah. And he looked at me and he goes, "Dude, you're really skinny." And at that point, I still didn't think anything was wrong. Yeah. So I took it as a compliment. Yeah. And then my friend Mike was there. It's like, "Yeah, man, if Greg says you're skinny, you're really skinny." And like that was kind of when he had that kind of sit down intervention moment. He's like, "Yeah, you need to put some weight back, man." Okay. So that was kind of the turning point of trying to feel where my new natural weight was supposed to be.
But you weren't with that much weight loss. You lost the weight, but you didn't feel like we talked about it a little bit, like loss of power. You didn't feel like weak or anything like that, right? You just the weight was just off, and like that.
The weight was just off, and like I said, I don't feel like I ever really got stronger. It just stayed more or less. The fitness ability stayed more or less the same. Okay.
So then you like eat a couple donuts? Like, how do you like?
Oh, I was eating pizzas. Okay. Forget donuts, man. I was eating full pizzas like every week.
I was going to ask, because like, when I started riding, like I can remember having an appetite as like a teenager. Then it dropped off, in my 30s, and then like I started riding, and it's just voracious. Like once I started riding regularly, so I can't imagine trying to lose that much weight, riding regularly, and then still having the appetite of a normal cyclist. So I'm glad you were figuring that out.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, that I want to say that month of gaining back weight was amazing. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I can do that part.
I can eat whatever I want right now.
Nice. You have any food allergies or anything?
I don't. Okay. Thankfully.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. So pizza and everything on it. What was your choice of pizza if you were getting pizza?
Medium pepperoni at Belmont Pizza.
Okay, medium pepperoni. Okay, Belmont Pizza. Okay,
I stick to basics.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, if you got a pie you like, might as well stick with it. So that talks to like why you keep riding, which is awesome. Right? There's a social circle, the fitness, and seeing yourself competing with others. Had you done anything competitive? You hadn't done anything competitive before, like
no.
physical. Okay.
Yeah, I was definitely raised. I was an indoor kid.
Okay.
Yeah, I like my video games. I like my Sega Genesis.
Okay.
Had a very, very respectable NES collection of video games. Yeah, I would definitely spend all my hours as a kid in front of a console.
Because it's my show. Was there a game of choice? Was there a game that stands out to you at that time?
Man.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Halo.
Really?
Halo.
Yeah, Halo was fantastic.
Original Halo too.
Oh yeah. The original Halo was an outstanding game. It was not record breaking. It's not the word. Revolutionary when it came out.
Oh yeah.
Xbox. It sold like without it, Xbox would not have continued at all. It was fantastic. So anyway, thought I'd ask. I also live that gamer lifestyle as well. So thought I'd ask. What do you take with you when you go out to ride now? Mountain bike ride, like what do you take with you now?
Actually, for both road and mountain biking.
Okay.
Of course, I usually bring 1 or 2 water bottles.
Okay.
It depends on how hot it is outside. Definitely have multi-tool tire levers, the tube that fits that bike. Right. I generally don't bring CO2 cartridges. I'll bring a hand pump.
Okay.
Just because I generally reserve the CO2 cartridges for races. And then some kind of bar or nutrition bar. Like my choice is these days it seems to be Lara bars.
Ooh, okay.
That seems to be most agreeable to my stomach.
Okay.
I did the Cliff Bar thing for a while. I did the Kind Energy Bar thing for a while, but like I just got tired of the flavor of those things, so I switched it off to Lara bars.
Lara bars work for you.
It seems to be a bit more natural.
Okay.
Bar. There's only like 2 or 3 ingredients. I think it's fig based.
Okay.
So it seems to be more natural and easier on my stomach.
I want to say I've tried one of those and did not find it enjoyable. But
they're still not enjoyable.
But
that's what agrees with me.
Okay. But they work. They work. I'm glad that because that's important. Like have a thing that you will eat that doesn't bother your stomach.
Yes.
Right, kind of thing out of the ride.
I learned that very quickly.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you kind of went through this cycle of like, what works for me? What do I like? What don't I like? What I know I don't like is heed.
Really?
That's Hammer Nutrition.
Okay.
Heed. I think it's the most disgusting thing that was ever invented.
Wait, that's the hydration
drink.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. I have not. I've seen it. I've not actually tried it, but I know at least a few people who said that they find it enjoyable.
Yeah. I do not.
Okay. What do you put in your bottles? Is it just water?
I've turned into a Noon person. I don't know if you
really?
tried the Noon tablets.
I have tried Noon.
Again, they're not the most enjoyable thing at all. But like I was looking for things that just agreed with my body.
It's important.
I don't like heat. I don't agree with lactose-based things. I don't. My body doesn't react well with those type of things.
Yeah.
I think Perpetuum is another one that doesn't really agree with me. and that's more of a endurance formula.
Okay. Perpetual. Okay.
It might be because there's lactose in there. I don't know.
What?
But Noon tablets seem to be they're not as sweet as Gatorade.
Okay.
Gatorade tends to be a little too sweet for me.
Yeah, Gatorade.
Even Gatorade powders, they just tend to be a little bit too sweet for me. And Noon just seems to be a little bit lighter on the flavor, but enough on the electrolytes that it keeps me going.
Very light on the flavor.
Yeah. I used to be a water only person.
Yeah.
And like it's only like probably in the last year or two that I started realizing that I needed more than just water.
Okay. Noon tablets. Are you getting any particular flavor? I like to ask people what flavors they're choosing.
Whatever's at Whole Foods. It tends to be the strawberry lemonade, though.
Okay.
Yeah. No caffeine. Yeah,
no caffeine?
I don't do the caffeine added nutrition.
You may want to save yourself some time. Well, you could buy those in bulk, slight bulk. But Noon, I know, occasionally has some sales on some stuff. I was trying to see if there are some Prime Day sales.
Okay.
On Noon tablets. We use the caffeine, so there's something you have to look. But there's a few Prime Day sales, and I think they have some that don't have caffeine. So you've got 4 hours or something like that, or 5 hours or whatever. Yeah. So it's your hydration snacks that you take on you on the ride. Do you have a bike computer?
I do have a bike computer.
Okay. Did you start off with a bike? When did the bike computer happen?
A dumb computer or a smart computer?
Computer fear. Yeah. What was your progression? Let's go with that. What was the progression?
So I started with. This is probably you're gonna laugh at this one because I'm sure you started with just a head unit.
Okay.
With no cables.
Okay.
So when I started with a bike computer was cabled. So you had to rig up the magnets on your wheels and your cranksets, and then figure out how to route and wrap the cable around from your chainstay all the way up to your handlebars, so that it didn't interfere with anything. And all it kept track of was speed and cadence.
Oh my God.
Yep.
How long did that go on?
Years. I don't think I bought my first I remember what it got. It was a Garmin Edge 500.
Okay, so you went from that to a Garmin Edge 500.
Yes.
Oh, that's like jumping out of the Stone Age to now.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So okay, you get this Garmin 500. How does it feel like to have this bike computer? That was a splurge, or did you get it from someone?
Oh, that was definitely a splurge.
Okay.
But then again, it's like, I don't know what to do with it. So like, I just want to track speed and cadence. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you have this, $250 like smart computer. It's like, I'm using like a tenth of what it can do.
As most do.
Yeah.
Do you still have that?
It only recently retired in I would say the last 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a Wahoo Element Bolt.
Okay. So you jump ship. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have any problems with the Garmin?
No, it just died.
Okay.
Yeah, the battery just finally gave out, and I was just like, I'm done.
Okay. Yeah, those things can't last forever. There's so many cycles left in their life. The Wahoo Bolt?
The Wahoo Bolt.
Okay.
Yep.
How you like the Bolt?
I do like it. I find the Wahoo products to be more user friendly, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, it just seems more intuitive.
Okay.
In the way to navigate to some of the functions versus the Garmin. But then again, I've never used like a newer Garmin. Mm-hmm. I'm just going off my experience from an Edge 500. But I find the usability to be a little bit easier on a Wahoo.
I've heard that from a number of people who've made a switch over to Wahoo, that it's a bit more user friendly. I was telling somebody else actually that the podcast came out today. Sorry about today's date, but I think the Garmin's, because they've existed so long, were building on an old platform, and so they just, when they got newer units that could do more stuff, they were still using old kind of programming and building upon it, kind of thing. So I do have a new Garmin, and so I think that's part of where Wahoo has advantage over them, because when they came out, Garmin had been building on the platform they'd had for a long ass time. And Wahoo was able to come with a brand newer platform to build on a newer technology.
That makes sense,
right?
Yeah, I mean, Garmin's been around for forever for GPS in general. So they probably just pulled old technology and said, let's just bundle it in this little egg-shaped thing and call it a bike computer.
Not to entice you to jump ship, but because you're talking about bike computers, the newest Garmin is can be solar powered. The thing has
that's interesting.
On the I suppose they've updated the OS, so like it's a new OS for it, for an operating system for people listening. But the main screen that you touch is like 15%. Like 15% of it can it's like a solar absorption of like 15%. And then the two strips above it, the strip above it and below it, it's like 100% absorption. And as you ride, if you got the solar version, it will tell you like how much either battery you generated like while riding and soaking in the sun, which I find exceptionally interesting.
Yeah, that would be. I think that's great for road riding.
Right. It probably is not super. Yeah.
It's probably not great for mountain biking because you spend so much time under a canopy that there's probably only but so much light it can absorb underneath there.
And that's a thing that hopefully someone who's like, I ride most in the trees, I should not get that version, because there's two versions. There's a non-solar version and then the solar version. So people get the option of spending that extra.
Yeah.
I am a road rider. I will likely go with the solar option.
And speaking of technology, it's actually funny, thinking about how we used to track, because I use Strava.
Okay, I was going to ask that next, yeah.
And, it's funny how we used to compete against each other, back in the day when we didn't have something that could upload to the internet. Mm-hmm. We used dumb Strava back then, which was, I'm going to start my wired computer at the base of this trail, ride as hard as I can, stop it, take my Motorola Razr flip phone, take a picture of the screen and text it to my buddy. It's like, hey, I just did this loop in 20 minutes.
God. Okay. That seems like a lot.
That was barbaric. Yeah. But it worked.
Are there any segments that you try to chase
now? Today I'm kind of, I want to say, I generally don't care anymore today.
Okay.
About chasing segments like as much as I did when I first started using Strava.
Okay.
There was one segment that I really tried for like max effort every single time I went out there, and that was like the pony pasture stretch, back and forth.
This is like right along the pony pasture,
right along the
river.
pony pasture.
Yep.
Yeah, that road right there. It's flat. It's straight. Mm-hmm. You just max effort, every single time. Like that was my segment that I tried for every single time when Strava first came out. Today it's more for just personal, PRs.
Okay.
Rather than trying to grab some kind of KOM. Right. Today, even today, it's like, especially after 2015 when Worlds came through, it's nearly impossible to get a com today.
Right.
Because you look at some of the East End segments, like, oh, Robert Gessing did this segment at 45 miles per hour. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna touch that.
Yeah, right. So it'd be nice to delete those, but no, they've got the KOM. They've got the KOM. It is what it is. Accidents other than getting stabbed in the hand by the tree. Your first. Have you had any accidents since you've been riding?
Two major ones that I can remember.
Would you like to talk about them?
First one was it was the start of summer vacation after the 5th grade. So there's this hill on my street that me and my friends like to bomb down.
Okay. As kids do.
And this was before we knew that helmets like save lives. Mm-hmm. So obviously I'm not wearing a helmet. So me and my friend, we've done a couple of runs of this hill, just kind of bombing down it. And this particular one, bombed down the hill on the sidewalk. And you know how some people like to edge their yards so close to the sidewalk? Mm-hmm. So this particular yard, they edged it so close that there like a little trench had developed.
Oh, okay.
So I had drifted into that trench. Mm-hmm. Front tire hits it, lose all control over the bike, and I face plant right into the sidewalk.
Okay. Oh.
So that blew my entire summer.
Yeah.
Probably had a concussion. That wasn't really a thing back then. Face all bloodied. I'm pretty sure there was a stain of blood on the sidewalk for a good 3 or 4 months. Like even when school started back up, I would walk by that spot. I'm like, that was my face. But today you can't really see it. No, I think it's blended fairly well. But like, there was a scar right here above my left eye. That encompassed like basically the whole left eye area of my forehead. And then right underneath my nose. Right here. You can't really see it today, but like you can see kind of like lines. A little bit underneath there, but those are the lasting marks from that. Second accident was, I want to say, about 4 years ago. And this was after a snowstorm. So I wanted to go for a ride. You know, the roads had been cleared, salted and sanded. And I went out with a couple friends, and I think we did the Old Gun route.
This on the road bike? On road bike.
So we started at like we met at the top of Nickel Bridge or something like that, and we went from there. Rode out to Old Gun, rode up to Old Gun, came back, and then I think it's this intersection where that intersection near what's that golf course right there? On the way there,
I don't know the golf course.
The country club that's right there. But there's an intersection there where you can take a right or go straight into like the Pony Pasture trails. Anyways, I was coming in through that intersection, and I was going to lean into the right turn to go back home, like near the country club, and I didn't see the patch of sand that was there. I hit the patch of sand. I'm leaning into the turn, and front tire goes. And I land squarely on my head. On my helmet.
Wait, you said on your helmet?
On my helmet. Like literally nothing else hit the ground other than my head. I was actually riding with Lester that day. And from the way he described it was he heard, "Oh shit," and bam, and that was it. That was a very scary accident for me. Because I'm literally missing eight hours of memory from that day. So I don't even remember hitting the ground or the accident. So I just remember kind of coming to at my friend's dinner table, and then noticing a note on the table that said, "Matt, you're in a bike accident. The doctor said you're going to be okay, but you need to take it easy." And I start freaking out because I don't remember anything prior to that note.
8 hours. I guess that's long enough for you to go to the hospital.
And apparently, so I hit the deck. One of my friends stayed behind. Lester and my other friend went to go get a car. And my friend that stayed with me, she was talking to me, and apparently I just stood there and I kept repeating myself. I kept saying the same thing over and over again. I don't remember what I was saying, but she just told me, it's like, yeah, you kept repeating yourself. It was really strange. And then I actually do remember like some bits and pieces of what happened. For some reason, the one memory that I actually do remember from that day is I was sitting in my condo waiting for my friends to figure out what the next move was. Took my phone out. I was cognizant enough to take a picture of my medical ID badge and text my boss saying, "I'm not going to be into work tomorrow." That much I do remember. But everything leading up to that, the visit to patient first, the CAT scan at the hospital, whatever else they did to me at the hospital, the trip to Lester's house.
None of that.
Gone. None of it. So that was really scary for me.
The repeating yourself, because apparently I've had enough people tell me about their accidents.
I've heard that.
It's a repeating theme. It's a thing that I've heard other people say. Like I don't know enough medical knowledge to like what that is.
I remember what it was.
What's that?
I was checking to see if my collarbone is okay.
Oh.
So I kept like spinning my arm apparently. And it was like, "Yep, collarbone's still there."
Okay.
And that's why I kept repeating.
You kept doing it. Well, you survived.
I survived.
Helmet went to the trash?
Helmet went... no. I kept it. That's a souvenir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still sitting. It's actually in my office. I kind of keep that as a reminder.
Okay.
To wear my helmet. But every time I look at it, I pick it up, and the first time I looked at it, it's like I was trying to count the cracks in the helmet. The first time I picked it up, it's like, oh, there's only 2 or 3 cracks in here.
Yeah.
It's like, that wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
And then I think it was like the second or third time I picked it up.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is like, there's like 15 cracks in it. This thing's shattered.
Yeah. Yeah. One blow. That's it. One blow, and that's it. One hit on those things, and supposedly it's supposed to be compromised, and you're not supposed to use them anymore. But I'm glad that it worked that day.
It did. It did its job.
Do you wear gloves?
I did then. I don't today.
Okay.
On the road.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I know some people just don't wear gloves. Well, I'm glad you survived that accident and the younger one.
And there's actually, going back to the gloves, there's actually a funny reason why I don't wear road gloves anymore.
Yeah, why don't you wear?
It's because so if you look at me right now, I'm actually fairly dark.
Okay.
So back then when I was wearing gloves, obviously you're going to get a little bit of a tan line on there. So I was actually developing a good tan line, a glove line around my wrists.
Yeah.
And I was at work, and my coworker, so my coworker knows to not call me Matthew, but she goes, Matthew, what's wrong with your hand?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a tan line.
Yeah. Yeah. And I tend not to have to deal with the tan line because I stay covered the whole time. But I know that's a thing, and I know people don't wear gloves for different. I have a friend of mine, Lucille, who never wears gloves when it's warm out. She doesn't wear gloves, which I wear gloves all the time.
Right. Yeah.
All the time. Earliest memory of riding a bike. Happy memory, not one when you face planted.
My dad teach me, and my friends teaching me how to ride a bike.
Yeah.
So learning how to ride a bike, had training wheels on. It would either be my dad or my across the street best friends that would be holding my seat to make sure I don't tip over, even with training wheels, because that was the level of comfort that I had with training wheels.
Oh, that's a good friend there.
But yeah.
As opposed to like pushing you over or something, which is what kids would do at that age. That's that. Do you have a favorite kit?
Favorite kit?
Or one you find like just extremely more comfortable than the others?
I don't know if there's a favorite kit, but so as I alluded to earlier, I like to over prepare.
Okay.
So I've found that now that I have more pockets, I need more.
Yeah. More pockets are better. Yeah.
More pockets are better. So for mountain biking, I actually have a pair of riding shorts that I like just because it has pockets.
Nice. Okay.
And then I recently discovered bibs that have side pockets. So for gravel nationals, which I don't know if you heard about the conditions at gravel nationals, but it was raining the whole entire time, and it was 45 degrees. So I had found a set of thermal bibs from Pactimo that had side pockets. So in some of the pictures that you see me in Gravel Nationals, that I've actually just loaded up like my pockets with snacks, like from the aid stations. So like in some of the pictures, you could see like bulges or lumps like in my legs, and it's not because like my legs are muscular. It's because I stole a lot of food.
Yeah,
that's why.
Got snacks in there. Nice. Snacks are great. They have them at the aid station. Grab snacks.
Exactly. That's what they're there for.
What do you want to see at the aid station? What snacks do you want to see at the aid station? What are the things you want if you go to an aid station? Whether it be, because I know you do mostly races. Like, what do you want to see at the aid station? Outside of water.
Outside of water.
Yeah.
Preferably not heat. I've definitely stopped at aid stations, and I'll ask them, it's like, what's in that cooler? And they'll say heat. Where's the water cooler?
Oh, okay.
I like bananas. My friends that know me well know that I love sweets. If there are cookies or brownie bites there, I will definitely go for the cookies and brownies first.
Okay.
and trail mix.
Mm-hmm. Trail mix is good. Trail mix is good. Since you've been riding, and when you go on your non-cycling vacations, right? Do you take your bike with you?
I do.
Okay.
I do. If it's within driving distance, I'll generally take a bike with me.
Okay.
So I'll do some research on wherever I'm going, and I'll figure out which weapon do I need to bring.
Yeah.
Do I need to bring a road bike? Now do I need to bring a gravel bike?
Yeah.
Can I bring a mountain bike? Are there trails there?
Yeah.
So a lot of my road trips generally are to the beach.
Okay.
They're family vacations to Outer Banks. So generally, if I go there, it's a road bike or a gravel bike. I'll bring that and ride on sand. If it's somewhere far off, I'll generally try to find some kind of tour, like a bike tour that I can do, and I'll rent a bike.
Ooh, okay.
So, God, my favorite bike tour that I did, it was definitely 10 plus years ago. It was a trip to Hawaii.
Wow. Okay.
And family was trying to figure out what to do, as far as activities go. So they decided they wanted to hike up. I think it was Diamond Head. So this is the island of Oahu.
Okay.
In Hawaii, and I was like, I don't want to do that. So I started doing some research, and I found a couple mountain biking tour companies that were out there that offered tours, bike rentals, and equipment rentals. So I was like, I'm going to go do that instead. So I did this. I signed up for this tour at the. I'm going to butcher it so bad.
It's fine.
But it is the Kualoa Ranch.
Okay.
At the Kaaba Valley.
Okay.
I think it was on the western side of Oahu.
Okay.
And the Kualoa Ranch has a really cool history.
Okay.
They actually use that to film a whole bunch of movies.
Okay.
So there's some, especially a tropical setting. So some of those shots where a helicopter's flying in, and you see these mountainous forest covered cliffs.
Sure.
A lot of times that will be the Kualoa Ranch. So they actually filmed the original Jurassic Park there. I think Godzilla 1998 was filmed there. Parts of Pearl Harbor, obviously, Pearl Harbor is in Hawaii. So they filmed a couple scenes at that ranch over there, and a couple other movies. But it was cool because they left all the props there. Okay. So if you remember from the original Jurassic Park, or that scene, it's like a wide open field, and I think it's like Dr. Grant and the two kids, and then all the small dinosaurs start running towards them. Oh, yeah. And then they duck behind this log. Yeah. The log was there. Oh, nice. So, by the time I get to it, it's like a little stump because everyone wants to stand out and take pictures on it. Yeah. But that was there, and then Godzilla's footprint from that Godzilla movie was there, and it was probably as big as this kitchen. Yeah. That's how big the footprint was. But that trip was cool because we're at a hotel, and you sign up for it, and they pick you up at the hotel. Okay. And God, I still remember the tour guide's name. Because he's a total surfer. His name was Matthias Nyquist. I mean, you can't get much more surfer than that kind of name. He picked me up from a hotel, and then he looks at me, and I'm Filipino. Yeah. And I'm probably going to butcher this too, but my parents are probably going to be very proud of me for saying it. But he goes, "Mabuhay, anong balita?" And in Filipino, Tagalog, that's pretty, a general greeting. It basically just means, hey, what's up? Okay. Yeah. And I don't really understand the Tagalog language today at all. I could pick up bits and pieces of it. Sure. I actually had to research this before I came here just to make sure I said it right. But he said that to me, and I looked at him and was like, man, I'm from Virginia. But it was an awesome tour. So, I mean, it was it ended up being a 2 or 3 hour mountain bike ride. Yeah. Had lunch trails and all on trails. Nice. They did an 18-hour or 24-hour marathon race every year on the trails they took us. I mean, it just ended up being an awesome day. Nice. How many other people went there? It was funny because it was about 8 of us. Okay. But 2 of the people, it was a couple. They bailed out before we even hit the trails because like it was too rough for them. And I was like, you just paid what $150 or whatever it is to ride a quarter of a mile and turn back because you didn't read the description.
Yep. Yeah. You should definitely try to understand before you join a ride in a foreign place, which is likely going to be hilly.
Yeah, but definitely most memorable, bike trip that I've been on.
Nice.
Bike tour trip that I've been on.
Have you flown with your own bike yet?
I've never flown a bike.
Okay.
No.
It's an interesting mental experience to fly with your...
Especially with carbon. That's why I haven't flown a bike yet.
Is it going to make it? Is there going to be something wrong with... Yeah, so it's doable for sure. Lots of people do it. In fact, I don't know of any stories yet of it going wrong. Although I did just see a story online about a guy who was going to London and they sent his bike somewhere else. And that would be not great, but as long as it arrives safely, I could deal.
Oh, kind of thing. That would be a nightmare for me, especially if I was flying my bike for a race.
Oh yeah, and that's what I think the guy was. Whoever this person was, I think they were going to do a race in London, and then whoever the airline was, which the news outlets that have reported have clearly said this was the airline that did it. So they may lose cyclists on their flights. How did the pandemic impact your cycling?
Yeah, the pandemic. I definitely halted all group rides.
Okay.
Or even just riding with people in general.
Okay.
I don't think I touched trail for a solid 6 months.
Okay.
Wow. So from March up until I would say September-ish, like I didn't touch any trail.
Okay.
I was strictly sticking to road biking.
Okay.
And I was purposely doing some odd routes to get to my normal route to stay away from people.
You're right. You're skipping the main thoroughfare.
I was definitely skip Rockets Landing, for example. Right, yeah, I was definitely taking like side roads to come around Rockets Landing just so I could avoid people. So just like the mental aspect, I mean, it definitely impacted the way I was thinking about what I wanted to do with my ride for that day. Okay. Just because I had built up so much anxiety from just from news and like, oh, if you get this, there's a chance you could end up in the hospital. It's like, and then the risk averseness in me is like, that's not worth it. Yeah. So I'm just going to go out of my way to like go to, right around this segment of town so that I can avoid people as much as possible. And then definitely as I started getting more comfortable with what was going on in the world, like I started, venturing out more into trail, where there's a higher chance of running into people and stuff like that. Yeah. It definitely impacted the way I was thinking about how and where I was riding.
You're not alone in the avoiding Rockets Landing, which is a fine area. But yeah, during that time as well, I was on a few rides where we definitely went up Bickerstaff by wherever the brewery is. Oh yeah. To avoid having to ride through all the people at Rockets Landing, which also means you avoid that first hill.
Oh yeah.
If you get around it.
Yeah, which was a bonus.
What's something you'd want to? Because you've had an extensive journey here with your own riding, right? Health wise, social circle expanding, your abilities expanding. What's something, if somehow you could talk to yourself, early version of Matt, who just got the mountain bike, right, and still in college, like what's something you would have wanted to like share with yourself then, kind of thing, about the riding experience, not just the winning lottery numbers.
Yeah, I would definitely tell myself to stop trying to compare myself to other people and just ride. Yeah. Yeah. Because when you're riding, a lot of it is mental, right? You're trying to figure out what you're capable of, what your equipment's capable of, and then, you go out to events and you start seeing people that have a lot more ability.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And that, that starts casting doubt in what you can do, you could do yourself. Yeah. And, I definitely went through some of those phases like, well, I'm riding this much. Why aren't I as fast as so-and-so? Yeah. Yeah. Right. And like, he rides like he rides a fraction of what I do. Yeah. It's like, there's no way. so I would definitely tell myself to stop comparing myself to other people and
Okay.
just ride for the enjoyment of it. Enjoy the fresh air,
Okay.
Enjoy life, and just enjoy being out there because you have the opportunity to.
Okay. All right. That seems like solid advice for,
Yeah.
for younger Matt. Okay. Well, Matt, I'm glad we were able to get this figured out, so we
Yeah,
could actually do
definitely.
this, man. So I appreciate you sharing your story, your weight loss journey and regaining of weight, and the racing and the teams, and everything. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing your story, man. Hope you enjoyed this.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me. It was a really fun experience.
Awesome. Thank you.